So we're going to hear more about innovation now. So please welcome to the stage Maria Pope, CEO of Portland General Electric, and Doug Kelsey, General Manager of TriMet, and they're going to talk about the electrification of our transportation network. Thank you.
Sandy, thank you very much. Oops, excuse me. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Doug and I are going to spend a few minutes talking about really a sense of urgency that we have around climate change and what our organizations are doing to address it. As you all know, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has given us 10 years to take very clear action and dramatic steps. This past fall, Doug and I attended with Mayor Ted Wheeler the C40 Mayors Summit on an international basis. As you may know, the Intergovernmental Panel has recognized the City of Portland as a climate change leader. We've been having discussions for the last couple of years around how we work better together, and this really accelerated our thinking around climate change. We also hear from a lot of our customers who want us to move faster and further. In particular at PGE, we're working in three main areas. The first one is how we decarbonize our energy supply. The second, given that electricity is the cleanest form of energy, how do we work with partners to provide clean energy, but in addition, make sure that infrastructure on the electrical basis is able to scale and make sure that we have a safe and reliable grid. And third, always remembering that we need to keep an eye on prices and affordability. We share our customers' sense of urgency on this topic, and I'm really pleased to share with all of you today that in just a couple of years, PGE's energy supply will be 2/3 carbon-free. That's a 50% increase of what we're doing today. And in partnership with our customers, we're able to make this a reality through closing of the Boardman coal plant, bringing online a facility that is currently being built in eastern Oregon that combines solar, battery, and storage all in one facility at scale. And then the City of Portland, Milwaukee, Hillsborough, Salem, Multnomah County, OHSU, Daimler, TriMet, they're all buying 100% green energy, allowing us to build an additional renewable facility also here in Oregon. So Doug, just last week, you and I were talking with the mayor, and you were talking about all of the interesting things that you're doing at TriMet. Do you want to talk about some of those things?
Sure. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Our relationships together is beyond just plugging into the wall, as we've tapped into PGE, as we all have for years. Just last year, we announced together with our partnership at PGE that we did the first ever 5 buses that are 100% wind powered. Now, as part of our commitment further, we're going to be converting our whole fleet over. We're in a position of transition. Transition starts where just last week we announced we're going to be converting over to renewable diesel from our existing diesel fleet. We're the largest purchaser of diesel products for products just like we use today every day in the state of Oregon. And so we will be converting over. Our last purchase of a diesel bus will be by 2025. We will have 340 buses converted by 2030. We're also going to be converting over to 100% wind power, the first that we know of in North America, the whole MAX rail system. So we're taking this journey. It's complex. We have to change all our behind-the-scenes infrastructure that nobody knows or really worries about, but it's a very complex transition we're in. It's a very exciting time. We're also going to be doing our first ever full carbon audit of TriMet. And that will also include the waste stream audit. And from there, we will chart over the next year a long-term carbon net zero strategy for the organization. There's a lot we don't know, but we have to start somewhere. So it's a very exciting time. We're also looking at things like something we actually picked up at over at the World Summit, that we're going to start piloting I'll call carbon sniffers, where we're working with a company in California right now. Can we actually put on our buses or bus stops, whichever makes sense, to start tracking our carbon emissions and others in this region, many other sensors it could pick up. So we can actually start and report on all of the same. So in fact, we can start having a scorecard of how we, corporately, individually, all of you in this room, how we're all actually doing. And if there's adjustments we need to make, making sure that we have the data to make the differences around balancing the fleet, et cetera, as we literally transition out of this diesel world into this new electric world. As we transition, it's really important, and thus the criticality of this partnership with PGE for TriMet. As we move from diesel to this electric world, they literally will become our mobility oxygen. We are only as good as the energy that they can feed us, and yes, including emergency as well. Those are discussions that Maria and I have had around part of resiliency, not just the daily service, but the resiliency that we're going to have to rely on, and we do rely on together. So it's an immensely exciting time. There's much we don't know, but we have challenges that come with this, but I've taken to our board of directors that we will be out fully of diesel by 2040 or before, as we ramp up to something just less than 900 to 1,000 buses here in our fleet in the next number of years to come. So this is our largest growth in history at TriMet, and while we're doing that, it's how we transform internally and externally all at the same time. So it's challenging and exciting. It's just a great place to be. So,
well,
how about yourself?
We have some terrific partnerships. Let me just talk a little bit about some of the issues that we're bringing together so that we can really create a clean energy future that's affordable and has the same safety and reliability that all of you have known to appreciate from Portland General. So a couple of examples. With the city of Hillsborough, I don't know if Mayor Callaway is here, but he and his team have worked with us to take 2 of our engineers and have them working full-time in the City of Hillsborough building, ensuring that as that area grows, which is growing quite significantly, that we're aligned on all of the infrastructure building that we need to do, lowering costs for both of us, but also making it easier on developers. Another example of a partnership would be Intel. They're expanding, as we know, also in Hillsborough, and we're building a substation on their property, but one that will also serve other customers and enhance the reliability of the region. We're also working with other high-tech and digital companies who are looking to locate here, bringing their capital investment and employment to the region, but also enhancing the grid for more reliable and affordable service for everyone. But I think one of my favorite partnerships, Doug, is the one that we have together at the Powell Street Depot. As TriMet is looking at expanding the electrification of that facility, they happen to be adjacent to the state's 911 center, a key reliability part of our region. And so between Doug's reliability needs and the state's needs, we're able to put in a battery storage system that will provide an enhanced reliability, or almost you can think of it as a macro grid, in that entire region, enhancing the reliability for everyone, and also the bidirectional flows of electricity as more people are doing self-generation within the region. Yep. So it's a great example. Yep. Doug, as I think of one of the things that's helped us is our private-public partnerships. As you look at the number of people you've worked with in the public arena, what works best for you as you think of going forward in the state?
Yeah, I think, well, the example you just raised, Marie, at Powell Garage, it really brought sort of overlay of the Venn diagram between what the talent and effectiveness that PGE has, plus what we as their customer, but also as investors in infrastructure and resiliency for the future bring to bear. So it's allowed us to have creative conversations that maybe naturally wouldn't have evolved. But it's very clear for me, because of the complexity of this issue that we're all learning and growing through, and we're having to do it fast, not just by maybe some of our normal processes. We're even looking at partnerships right now. I referred to what I'll call the CO2 sniffers. We're even piloting right now a fully recycled articulated bus. It's a really old bus that's down in California right now. We're building it, stripping it down, and how do we recycle a full bus? and literally take it from what was a diesel bus, and we're now going to rebuild this phoenix of a project back into the North America's first diesel to electric articulated bus. And I think we can do that for probably 30% of the cost structure, which in turn can allow us to accelerate up the conversion of our fleet. So we're challenging ourselves in new ways, but to your point, Maria, you can't do this alone. It's going to take partnerships from the small, the medium, and the large. And I think it, from my perspective, is also going to challenge the way we look at policy fundamentally. We're doing this here at TriMet. We do not have all the funding to do this, but if I can't wait for the funding. We have to move now because the planet is burning. We need to make changes like we've never contemplated before, and so there's some policy changes that we've got to make on the funding piece, but also as well at the operating level, where our municipal partners, our regional partners, even state partners, we have got to rip up the scar tissue of getting products to market quicker, to accelerate up these partnerships to get to this outcome that we need to do, because we don't have the same time of luxury of natural rhythm. So it's for those reasons we have got to speed the buses up. To buy a bus and have it sit next to a single occupant vehicle is not a winning formula. Other cities around the world, whether it be Singapore, Copenhagen, London, and others, we've got to start prioritizing the healthy choices of walking, cycling, transit on that list, and others to come that we don't even know about. We have got to tilt that playing field and accelerate up those assets. And I come from the private sector many years ago, and we've got to make these assets sweat. We've got to get more out of them, take less of a footprint of them for what they do today, and we've got to move and accelerate up the whole conversation of a competitive region, competitive state, so it's going to take all kinds of partnerships to be able to pull this off. So, yeah.
So as I look at the partnerships across the state, one of the things that was really important to us this past session, and as we get back into the next legislative session, is cap and trade. And under the governor's leadership, really working on an all-economy solution, but that also creates compromises so that we can have inclusive dialogue between those in urban core and those in more rural parts of our state. It's really important to us that we serve all customers, and so in partnership with other utilities, with businesses, urban and rural, we're coming together to work on this in the next session. Also working very closely with our city leaders, who are hearing very clearly from their constituents and their community members that they want both PGE and TriMet to lean in together and work collaboratively on these solutions. So as electricity is the cleanest form of energy, living up to the reliability standards that Doug has for us, as well as many of your businesses, and keeping costs affordable so that everyone in this clean energy economy can come along and that we don't leave anyone behind. So thank you very much for your time today. It's a pleasure being with you. And with that, we'll turn it over to our next speaker.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, we did it. Yeah, that was pretty good, huh? You know, to share the stage, that was a pretty amazing lineup to get to share the stage with, and it's only 3:20. So that's a pretty power-packed day. So I want to thank you, first of all, for attending. It's important that you're here. Without you being here, we can't do this. But at the beginning, we asked some questions. We asked some questions about the long game. We weren't here to come with answers. We were here to really gather questions. So it was about asking the questions rather than having the answers. We heard about a lot of them. We started the day with 5 questions in your packet. How do we ensure that prosperity is broadly shared? How do we improve our economic competitiveness? How do we adapt to a radically different future of work? How do we grow yet protect and enhance our quality of life? And finally, how do we adapt to a changing climate while sustaining economic progress? We also heard several great questions from you. We got over 150 new questions throughout the day that we can add to our list and begin to take a look at as we prepare for our next look at the business plan for the next decade. Next year's summit will be about returning with answers to the questions. It's our intention to explore and to develop the many topics, ideas, and themes presented on stage for the next year ahead. So we've got 12 months to do that. The opportunities and challenges ahead are big. The effort to answer them needs to match our plan to work with many of you in the audience to accomplish this task, working with our industry, our regional economic development, state, community, legislative partners to put together a vision for a decade of prosperity in Oregon. Earlier in the new year, look for follow-up. We're going to be accountable on how we'd like to engage with you on that next step. Our first step in the process is to go a bit deeper on many of the topics highlighted on stage today and in the breakouts. With that said, we realize we're not very exhaustive with all the issues of importance to Oregon's future today. For example, issues like transportation, we're given just a light touch at the end. Or not to mention at all, but worry not, these and other important issues will be part of the work in the year ahead for us. So, none of this happens without a lot of work that happens behind the scenes. Just getting people to the stage to meet their schedules is such a big effort. I want to thank the entire OBC team, the Oregon Business Council team, and especially mention to Jen Lawson, who has worked tirelessly to pull all this together. Thank you to everybody. I also want to thank Henry V. for helping us put on the show. Without them, none of this comes together as well. And the hundreds of hours of volunteer support that we get from business associations, nonprofits, and also the public sector. And once again, I want to thank our sponsors who were here today. And again, not just about today, but throughout the events we do through the year that we'll rely on to put this whole program together to bring back to you in December of 2020. It'll be here before you know it. So thanks again for attending. We really appreciate it. We're going to take a break now. For those of you attending our breakout sessions, we're going to take about a 15-minute transition. Love to have you attend. We'll go deeper on so many topics we talked about today and enjoy those sessions, and we'll see you back at the break. Thank you.